SJ, welcome to Mvskoke Radio, your weekly source for tribal and community news, interesting guests and discussions, plus a local events calendar. SJ, Stongo, Gary Fife, Jaho Jifkadas, Mvskoke Radio, Mabu Hedja to Wedgekits. Welcome to our program here on 1240 The Brew. We've got a couple things lined up for you on today's program. First of all, we'll be talking to the acting chief of Lighthorse Police, Mr. Daniel Wind, and he's brought along with him the deputy chief, Robert Hawkins. We'll be talking to them about the status of the department there and tossing a few questions at him. See how we're doing there. Of course, since he's still in an acting capacity, he'll answer to the best of his ability at the moment. So we'll see if we can get him on the spot or something like that. In our second segment, we'll be talking with Ben Barnes. He is the second chief of the Shawnee Nation, and he was going to be sharing some of the material from his presentation at the Continuing Law Education seminar that was held recently. His topic is fake Indians. What is the cost to Native America? It's not just somebody getting out there in red face and with a replica outfit on, but it's actual costs in federal grant monies and things like that. So we've got a lot of material to share with you, but we'll first let's just jump into it. First of all, gentlemen, Chief Wind and Acting Chief Hawkins, thank you. Deputy Chief Hawkins, thank you for making time for me this morning on our stormy aftermath here. I understand you guys are kind of busy last night.
Yeah, there was obviously this situation all across Creek Nation, but we dealt with one specifically in Morris early this morning. There was some flooding, and our officers that were out working that shift, they went over and helped out, setting up roadblocks, assisted Police Chief Phillips over there, and I went out to assist and just kind of help wherever I could. So yeah, it was a short night.
Well, that kind of highlights the role that you play in our community. It's not just as a law enforcement agency, but there's a lot of support you gentlemen do with local agencies and helping out in situations like that.
Most definitely. We're cross-commissioned with the Morris Police Department, and so, we feel like obviously they're within the Creek Nation. They're a part of our community, and we have a lot of our citizens that live over there. So obviously we're going to do what we can, whatever the situation is, to assist.
All right. Now that topic of cross-commissioning, jurisdictional relationships, we're going to come back to that one in a moment. I know that's kind of a big one on our listeners' minds. But first of all, how is the Lighthorse Department doing? I guess the status, number of officers, departments, things you guys got up your sleeve. What do you have there, Mr. Hawkins?
Well, as for the department, we have pretty much just reorganized and restaffed. I know that we've been running short-handed, but we are getting hired in, and we have built on our progress. We're just building on it. We are implementing new things in for the department, being more proactive, and just really stepping up to the plate and providing better protection for our citizens, and just really getting a better status with the communities, with other agencies, and just building on things.
Well, while we're in that area, let me ask you, what does it take to become a Lighthorse officer? What are the requirements, first of all, and what sorts of testing do you might implement there? What all is involved in becoming a Lighthorse officer?
Well, to become a Lighthorse officer, obviously you start in with the basic process, is submit an application through the Creek Nation Human Resources Department. We'll collect those, look at them, go through them, and what we're looking for is we have Native American preference, obviously Mvskoke preference first, then other tribal, and then non-tribal. We also they must have 15 hours, a minimum of 15 hours of college credit working towards an associate's degree, over the age of 21, and a clean background check. So those are the things that we're looking for in an officer.
It's not just what used to be in older days, the good old boys. You ain't looking for them no more. You've got to be educated. You've got to be sharp and capable, familiar with your community, I would presume. And
exactly. One of the other things that obviously we would like for someone to be certified, which means through the Council of Law Enforcement Education and Training here in Oklahoma. But just because you're not CLEAT certified doesn't mean that we won't take a look at you and give you a chance.
Now, we've often heard the term CLEAT. Now, that's is that an actual training program that a candidate would have to go through?
CLEAT is the statewide, they take care of all the training here in state, certifying officers. They actually hold an academy. But what Chief Hawkins and myself have decided to do is we're starting to send our officers to the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center in Artesia, New Mexico, where they will actually go through what's called the Indian Police Academy, which services all the Native American tribes here in the States, and they go through their 16-week course, which is paramilitary. Really prepares them to go out and possibly, if they have to work alone on the reservation, such as North Dakota or Montana. So it's a pretty intense training.
Having been through North Dakota, you could be alone real quick.
Exactly, and that's why one of the reasons that we looked at FLETS here at the IAP was our officers many times could
Thanks
be
for
out
joining
by
the Brewski
themselves,
Tribe.
In the middle of the night, and we want them to be able to protect themselves as well as our citizens.
That particular area and issue kind of intrigues me there now. Is there some sort of special orientation that these candidates would have to go through in regards to native cultures or heritage? And I presume that might be refined even further when they got to a specific location.
Yeah.
Well, in other words, I guess what's it take to be an Indian cop?
To be an Indian cop, that's a pretty good question. Really, just it helps to know your tribal history, where you're from, your people are from. You're right. It's not like it used to be. Give someone a badge, and now you have to not only have the education from the college or so forth, but you also have to have an education on who you are as a Native American. And so what they'll receive out there is they'll actually receive Native American law. Something that's geared more specifically for working on the reservation or working within the tribe, versus here going through the CLEAT Police Academy, where you're learning more stateside laws, which that's we have to know that as well. As light horsemen, we have to know federal law, we have to know state law, we have to know tribal law, and we have to know when to apply each of those in every situation.
It's kind of a complicated world you live in there. Now, for people who aren't that familiar with Light Horse, let's kind of get a feel for what else or the departments that you have. I understand that there's the patrol officers that we're familiar with, but there are specialties within your force.
Yes, sir. We have specialized units, and in these units, they received the necessary training that will keep them sharp on their skills. We do have an investigation unit which consists of 3 investigators. They handle all aspects of crime, anything that our officers bring in or something that may be brought to us. Maybe let's say, for instance, on a federal level, we get assistance calls from the FBI, the BIA, and some of these other entities outside. We also have a dive team, and we utilize it for, such as, today. If we're need to call out for water rescues, which I'm understanding that there are some that's occurring up between Hectorville and Liberty right now.
You're right.
And so we would utilize them for those purposes and for other issues. Somebody off in the water or something. Search and recovery, search and rescue. Stuff like that. And we are implementing back in our tactical unit, dealing with active shooters, any kind of activity we would have to utilize, such as I'm going to call them a SWAT team. It's not. We're not. We're not calling them a SWAT team.
Right.
It's our tactical unit, but we'll utilize them. I have 3 K-9 officers that are extremely well trained. They do well. We assist other agencies, and between them and their K-9s, they're an excellent group. And out of all these units, we do receive, like I said, the specialized training. We send them training on federal side, state side, and just so that they can stay sharp and stay on top of all the new regulations that come out every year.
Now, I've had the privilege of being given a tour through your facility there, and I noticed that you had quite an arsenal put away for specialized use, and a lot of it involves non-lethal weapons, pepper sprays or pepper balls or something like that. Is that something that gets called out from time to time?
We will utilize it if need be. I mean, anytime you go out and you deal with an issue, you have a level of force that has to be utilized. Of course, deadly force is the absolute last resort. And Lord forbid we hope we don't ever have to do that. But our hands-on training is well versed. We do have PR-24 or baton training. We have that, and then we go up from there. If we have to utilize, say, our tasers, we are all taser certified, and if we have to use that, we will, and then it just, like I said, just the level of force just goes up. We do have the pepper balls, pepper spray, and of course we are trained in this.
Now, the use of a taser has made quite an issue in Tulsa County. I presume your officers are all aware of that situation now, and have you done any special discussions or presentations or seminars on that kind of thing?
We actually have addressed that with all of our officers. First and foremost, we make sure all of our officers are certified to carry that taser. And like Chief Hawkins said, anything that we have, any of the munitions, weapons, and so forth, that we make sure that we have all the proper training. But what we also have in-house is we have 11 certified, CLEAT certified instructors. And we've addressed that specifically because not only is that a hot topic, if you will, here in Oklahoma, but I've gone to trainings in other states as recently as Texas here a few months ago, and that subject came up as well. And it boils down to the mentality of that officer being able to handle what he's been given, and a lot of the training has to go into any of these specialized munitions that we carry, whether it be the pepper ball, the taser, even we have access. We actually have a 40 millimeter launcher that can handle such as a riot situation if anything like that should ever happen. But we do have officers who are trained to properly handle those.
Okay, so there won't be any deadly mistakes.
Definitely. And Chief Hawkins, he said obviously that's the last thing we want to do. The matrix that he spoke about. Every officer that wears that duty rig, he has to know what that matrix is, and so he can start with the less lethal. Obviously, the first one would be his voice, command, presence, and so forth. But our officers are trained that if they have to go to lethal, then they can.
I understand that everyone who carries a taser has to be shot by one to know what they're doing there.
Yes,
I
sir.
saw it happen. Yeah.
That is, yes, sir. Everybody that is certified that goes through to carry a taser will get to take the ride, and
Ooh.
it is something that is. Boy, you don't wish that on nobody.
Well, from
No. Now,
the-
one of the things is those cartridges aren't cheap, so we don't actually go and shoot every single one of our officers. We actually have a system that has what they call alligator clips, so you can clip them onto the person's shirt, say on the back of their shirt, all the way down to their shoe. It hooks up to the taser. You pull the trigger, and they're going to get the same effect. So everyone does get to ride the lightning, so to speak.
Yeah, so that way they're a little more careful in how they're used in the future.
Yes, most
Okay.
definitely.
Well, let me shift gears here a minute. We're looking at a situation with your predecessors and a problem they had with jurisdictional issues. We spoke with Sheriff Rice here in Okmulgee, and there was a problem there with a memo of jurisdiction, I believe it's called, was not being extended. Therefore, there was questions being raised on where your officers had authority and where they could enforce the laws that you're committed to, and then how you might have to work with a local jurisdiction now. Where are we with that situation? I understand there was a meeting and discussion about that this week.
Actually, to speak specifically regarding Okmulgee County, we actually had a meeting with the sheriff and with the Okmulgee County DA last week, where we hashed out a plan for our Attorney General, Kevin Dillinger, and one of the assistant AGs, Shelley Harrison, to sit down with DA Rob Barris to kind of hash out everything, to come to, put things on paper, come to an understanding that's beneficial and mutually agreeable to both parties. And so yesterday they set up their meeting yesterday afternoon, and I just spoke with our AG, and Kevin said things went very well. I think everyone left that meeting pleased with the progress that was made, and the agreement will be forthcoming very soon.
So it's not actually on paper and signed yet, but it's coming.
It is coming, and again, it's one of those legalities, things that are going to not only benefit but kind of take care of one another as far as like liability, and dealing with different situations that will come up. And but like I said, Kevin said that things went really well yesterday, so we're looking forward to that.
When I spoke with him, with Sheriff Rice some time back, he said there were problems with not knowing where the borders were or something like that, something to that effect. Now, can you maybe explain in real basic terms where your authority to enforce laws extends, and if there is some limit to it, and where you would have to perhaps stop an action or just hold up an action and then call in local agencies? Is there some way you can maybe explain that for us?
Our jurisdiction is based on restricted or trust properties. Okay, and whenever we deal with let's say Indian on Indian crime, that is ultimately our jurisdiction. We will handle that, whether it's through tribal or federal, and we will, on arrests and we will handle all that. When it comes to non-Indian violations on tribal property or on trust restricted lands, what our process is we do respond to it, and once we realize that we're dealing with a non-Indian, we contact that other jurisdictional agency, which would be whichever county or municipality we may be in, and then they will come out and they will take the situation with it being non-Indian.
So in theory, you were dealing with, say, a fist fight in a casino parking lot, you would respond to it and take the proper action to end that conflict. But if one of the participants were non-Indian, then you might call the Okmulgee sheriff, or would you just go ahead and?
Well, if it actually, one thing to remember is our casino here in town, One Fire, is actually in the jurisdiction of the city of Okmulgee. So what we would do in that case, in that instance, obviously we're going to deal with the situation immediately to keep anyone from getting hurt and so forth. But once we get that situation taken care of and the parties separated, then we would call the local jurisdiction. And in this instance, it would be Okmulgee PD, and then they would come out and handle on their end, if you will.
One more question in that vein. Say if there was a major traffic accident on 75 involving, say, injury or perhaps a fatality, then where would you guys stand there? You would probably want to respond and do what you could to help save a life, but divert traffic, I presume.
Well, how we have instructed our officers and with the issue with the cross deputizations. Now, let me fall back on to crime that occurs on our tribal properties. With cross deputization, that would allow us to take control of the full situation. As for dealing with a non-Indian that has committed a crime on tribal property, we could actually make the arrest and take the non-Indian to jail, and then do the paperwork on it, out of custody affidavits or affidavits, pertaining to them being taken to jail. As for the question that you just asked on any kind of traffic accidents or stuff like that, anything that deals with public safety, we are going to respond. But if we're out and there's an accident, we're going to stop. We're going to assist in whatever ways that we can. Vehicle may be on the side of the road, broke down, and we've had instances with that where our officers have stopped and have assisted with changing a tire or waiting on somebody to show up to assist a broke down vehicle. So anything with public safety, we're going to respond to, even outside of a cross deputization. But we will contact that jurisdictional agency and let them know what we have and where we are, and provide any assistance that we can.
Okay, one more in that direction. This one perhaps has a bit of a personal edge to it. 5 o'clock, bang, the gates are open. It's like you pull the plug out of the tub and the water's just up 75 toward Tulsa. And there have been so many times when I've been blown off the road by some nutcase in a big, huge pickup, or somebody in a little sports car weaving in and out of traffic like they thought it was their particular race course. If one of your officers had personally observed this happen, could they take any action, or would they coordinate with someone else? What would happen there?
We would take that action. If we see somebody driving reckless, just endangering the public, we would contact, and we would make that stop, and then contact that jurisdictional agency, of course, and letting them know, hey, this is what we have. Okay. Reckless driver, possible signal 88, or a drunk driver, in other words. There's just a lot of things that fall into place, with public safety, on the highway, or dealing with accidents or broke down vehicles. But public safety is important, and we're going to do what we can to assist and to keep the other citizens safe that's out on the road.
Right now, let me ask you, what is your relationships then with other departments, county, Tulsa, state highway patrol? How are you getting along with them, so to speak?
We actually have pretty good relationships with, we have good relationship, I should say, with all of the jurisdictions that we're in. We're actually cross-commissioned with quite a few of the couple of counties and a lot of the towns that we're in. Like I said, most recently we cross-commissioned with the city of Dewar. We went, Chief Hawkins and I went before their city council, kind of explained that we're not here to take jurisdiction, but to kind of augment what they have because they have a smaller police department. They may have things that, resources that they don't have that we can share with them. And as we explained to their city council, our duty, we feel, is to however we can assist, then we will share our resources, whether it's our boat to come help rescue people or even our personnel is coming in and assisting in teaching. Like I said, we have state certified instructors, and because each police officer is required by law to receive a minimum of 25 hours a year of continuing education, we could also offer that.
Let me shift gears again here. In dealing with traditional stomp grounds and things like that, they have their own warriors who are charged with keeping order on the grounds there. But they also have said that they appreciate the presence of light horse officers there. How do you work with the traditional Tustanudgis and guys like that in upholding what was traditional law versus the written down legal kind of thing?
When I came on board in 2005, I grew up in Dallas, and so I wasn't familiar with our ceremonial grounds and such. And I had an officer, he's one of our sergeants now, there. I spoke with him. I spoke with a couple of other officers at the time that were more traditional, if you will. And one of the things that they said was, you have to understand that grounds is pretty much their own jurisdiction. They will handle things the way that they feel that they need to, whether it be the traditional way of someone's haji or under the influence.
Tied to a tree.
Exactly. And what I was instructed and what we've always instructed our officers is you let them deal with that. We have always been welcomed at the grounds. We've never had an officer being asked to leave. But we also tell our officers to be very respectful. Go introduce yourself to the Miko, to the Tustanudgi, Hilasaya, and just, make sure it's okay for you to be there because they may be doing something that they may not want us there. And we're acceptable of that. And, like I said, we understand that that's their laws and it may be our ways, but it's their laws, and so we'll let them deal with it. And when they feel like they need us, then of course we're there to help out any way we can. We even tell our officers, instruct all of our officers, if you're offered something to drink, please take it. We want to be courteous and we want to be respectful to our host, if you will. And so one of the things that we've done is, like I said, mentioned Sergeant Leland Bear. One of the things that he has done is actually put together for our new hires a orientation that deals specifically with the grounds and the expectations that we have of them while they're there visiting, if you will.
Okay, final question. Is your department doing some community outreach, going out and talking to people, or any seminars or any educational kind of projects?
We offer a lot of different trainings. We have a meth initiative officer, Jason Bleeker. I had that position formerly. And basically what we do is anytime a community, whether it's a Head Start or a Child Development Center, anytime they would like a training on, say, anything from domestic violence to the dangers of meth, where our officers are trained to go out and do that. That's one of the beauties of our department is we have access to federal training. So we have officers who are federally certified in domestic violence and active shooter situations. So we can give a training on a wide variety of topics.
Well, I've taken a course there, offered through your department on the CCW, the Self-Defense Act, and that kind of thing. I was pleased with what I got there. Gentlemen, if somebody has a question or anything else about your department or perhaps a problem or something of that nature, how do they get in touch with you guys?
They can call down to the they can call to the department and just call the direct line in there, and they can ask for myself or Daniel, and we're free anytime, and
Oh yeah, this other guy sitting here.
yeah, that's just what happens.
Don't feel bad. I've drawn a complete blank several times.
It happens often. So
well, do it on air a couple times, then you'll remember. But that's wonderful. Now I understand you're both still in acting capacities right now. Any word on like a confirmation or anything like that?
We're hoping that confirmation should come sometime in August. That's what we're shooting for. There's working some things out right now, just to make sure that everything is in where it needs to be. So we're looking at we're hoping to around the end of August or so.
Okay. Well, thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate you making time for us here today. Daniel Wind and Robert Hawkins, thank you for joining us here. We will have you back. Any final thought you might want to share?
Yeah, one thing. I am Daniel Wind the third. There's like 8 Daniel Wind. So.
Oh, okay. Well, all I was seeing on my page was Daniel Wind scribble. So
one thing I do want to end with is anytime anyone has any kind of a problem or a situation, please do not hesitate to stop by, to give us a call, or anything that we can do. Our service is to our tribe, to our people, to our property, and so if there's anything that we can do, and if we can't, we'll help you find the path to go on that where you will get an answer.
Well, I guarantee you we will be calling you again around August or so to see how you're doing and the progress of any other work on this jurisdictional issue, see who signed into it and this kind of thing, kind of an update. So, gentlemen, we appreciate your time here this morning. We're going to take a pause here on Mvskoke Radio, and then we're going to be back with Mr. Ben Barnes to talk about fake Indians. So stay with us here on Mvskoke Radio on 1240 The Brew.
I started doing it when I was 11. I wanted to be just like my big brother. And some of my friends were already doing it. We got hooked fast. I just can't get enough. I'm Jacob, and I'm addicted to playing the drums.
There's lots of stuff that makes it cool to be native. Doing meth isn't one of them. Find something better to do. Check out ncai.org. A message from the Partnership for a Drug-Free America and the National Congress of American Indians. Who am I? Am I Indian? Just 'cause I'm a girl from the res, don't make things up about me. What if I move away? Then who am I? Some kids try meth just to escape. But then I think about my grandma, my little brother, my beadwork, my poetry, and I think, I like who I am. And I know meth is not for me.
Check out ncai.org, a message from the Partnership for a Drug-Free America and the National Congress of American Indians.
Welcome back to Mvskoke Radio here on 1240 The Brew. I'm Gary Fife. I have on the line here the second chief of the Shawnee Nation, Mr. Ben Barnes. Mr. Barnes, you with us?
Yes, I am. Thank you, Gary.
Okay, great. Now, I recently saw a presentation you made at the Continuing Law Education Seminar here at the River Spirit Center. And I was impressed by the amount of material you had, and I presume you could have gone on further. But what it did for me is like the topic was like fake Indians, and first thing came to my mind were all these hobbyist types who show up at different festivals wearing more authentic than real Indians outfits and a red face and this kind of thing. But you pointed out these groups are siphoning off vast amounts of federal monies that are actually meant for tribal government. So first of all, how do you look at the issue of these fake Indian people and their attempt to masquerade as tribes?
For us Shawnee people, our homelands are east of the Mississippi, largely. We lived in more than 20 states. And so we have a vast area of interest. But in these states we were moved from, Indian removal was thorough. and there's no nations left in those places. We're in that vacuum left behind by when they forced us out of those places. People have sprung up with their idea of what Indians are. And so it goes like you say, at first you think, oh, these folks are just dressing up in red face and pretending to be us. And then at some point in time, they start to talk on our behalf. They start to take political positions. They start to oppose pipelines and oil, or they oppose a bypass or a parking lot. And they start taking political positions and representing themselves as being us, which creates a conflict for our nations, because our nations may not want to get embroiled in those political battles of these other states. We don't want to bring undue attention to ourselves, but worse than that is the amount of money they siphon away from the federal government and from real Indian nations, and not just Indian nations, but in any community that struggles and relies on federal grants to help those communities, whether they're Native American or some other minority. These groups in the Government Accountability Office, GAO report, that's Golf Alpha Oscar, report 12-348. There was, just for these fake tribes, siphoned off $100 million of federal money between 2007 and 2010. Just 26 of these groups. And the Cherokees have over 200 of these fake groups. Us Shawnee people have over 30 501c3s that are claiming to be Shawnee people. And we have dozens and dozens more of these little Shawnee culture clubs. And down in the southeast, the Mvskoke Creek Nation have fake tribes, and they're holding themselves up to be you guys, and they're stealing your ceremonies, your sacred ceremonies. They sneak into dance grounds and, try to take that back to their home places and represent themselves to be you guys. So it's a terrible thing.
Now, in the experience I've had with individuals who are kind of passing themselves off, one of the things that sort of irritated me is they tend to start making up their own traditional or customs and things like that. I remember a guy in Alaska, of all places, who just kind of made a real point of saying, "Oh, I know all the native traditional activities that are going on in the state, and kind of I'm more Indian than you are," kind of attitude, or. Someone showing up at a powwow with this Pocahontas-looking outfit that they've dreamed up, and instead of joining the women in their traditional steps, just decided to go off on this weird ballet-looking thing. Are we talking about that sort of thing influencing the thinking of people when they think of Indians up there and everywhere else in the nation?
Yeah, it does. When they dress up that way and represent themselves that way, that's how those folks with no education and who have never encountered Native American people come to perceive Native people. They don't see the guys that you and I see every day. Folks wearing Oklahoma State shirts, folks wearing OU shirts, folks, got a shirt that says Mvskoke Creek Nation, or a tribal chief that's wearing a suit, not a coyote skin over his head. They see these ridiculous pantomimes of what they think is Indian, and so they come to expect that. And they pay money to see that, and the groups siphon that away, and they don't see the real Indians. Our leaders that fight every day to struggle to bring money home for our communities, to fight for grants, to language preservation. Each year there's diminishing monies for language preservation, and we have to fight these fakes for the very grants that are sustaining our nations, particularly in regards to cultural and language preservation.
Also, the really hard kind of issues like housing or drug
Absolutely.
programs, education, pre-K
HUD
through
money is
secondary.
one of the largest ones siphoned off.
Yes,
HUD
thank
money.
you. I know. Where are these monies going? Has anybody kind of taken a look at what happens when one of these outfits gets a hold of some of this stuff?
There's very little accountability as long as they follow the proper paperwork with the program, and no one checks and no one really checks these programs to see if they're spending the money in the way they are. There's a lot of times, they follow the same rules we do about grant reporting, but because they're not real tribal nations, they're not required to have their yearly audits like we are. They're not required to have their multiple audits of their gaming ventures whenever they enter into an area like in Alabama where bingo's legal and some of these fake tribes run a bingo. They don't have the NIGC coming, making sure that they run a quality operation. The 8A program for disadvantaged businesses, is a self-identification program. All you got to do is check the box and tell them you're a minority. And no one comes to check to make sure that you're telling the truth.
Is there no requirement or no agency charged with following through and vetting them or, investigating it at all?
There currently is no agency tasked with that.
Okay, gosh. Now, I know there have been many cases around the nation, including Alaska, where artists, quote unquote, have been claiming their work was Native American when indeed it was perhaps somebody's lost grandmother who didn't get on the books or fell off the wagon during the Trail of Tears or that sort of thing, and kind of inventing a heritage. Arts and crafts is a sitting duck for sort of thing, right?
Yeah, the Indian Arts and Crafts Act is that commission is not one that's tremendously funded. So they go after the low hanging fruit. Like there was one in New Mexico, and it was in the desert Southwest, and there was a ring of Filipino importers that was bringing in things from the Philippines, and there was hundreds of people that was involved.
Right.
So they got that one.
I remember a story one of my colleagues did from Alaska once, where the artist was using a name similar to a Yupik Eskimo guy's name, but it was slightly changed and turned out he was actually Vietnamese, and the shop was selling the stuff by the ton and claiming it was Alaska Native. And I've spoken to people here at the arts fair that they hold in Glenpool about that kind of thing too, and they said, yeah, it's still out there, and we're having to deal with it.
We can report those folks, and occasionally, things do get done, especially if you report them to the organization that's hosting them, and then that organization, like we've done that at Cahokia Mounds, we've done it at the Fort Ancient Historic Site in Ohio, and we've done it elsewhere, and usually that organization will handle it, but then that just pushes them into another region or another area to go sell their wares. Mm-hmm. But here in our state, I believe the 5 Civilized Tribes, as they're called, is pushing for a state legislation that's going to amend the Indian Arts and Crafts Act within the state borders. It's going to define more types of art and representation, but it's also going to remove that state-recognized tribe loophole. So we're not going to see these state-recognized tribes come in and represent themselves as our artists and steal money from our people.
Okay, Ben, let me take a second here to allow my engineer here. He's got a question for you. This is Stan, and he's got something he wants to ask.
Howdy, sir. Howdy, Mr. Barnes.
Okay.
I've just got a general question for you, and I don't know that you would have a problem with this, though. My brother-in-law, he's a federal agent, and he married a lovely Pawnee woman from the Ponca City area, and they have children together. And Kevin, he's as white as the driven snow, but he is so fascinated by the Pawnee culture. He doesn't claim to be Pawnee, and he certainly doesn't try to exploit it or take advantage of it. But for the past 20 years, he's a professional dancer, Native American dancer. He has the very expensive uniforms, and he's actually been asked to join other dancers, and he tours the country, and he's learned the Pawnee language. And like I say, he doesn't claim to be Pawnee, but he's taught his own sons Pawnee, and he doesn't take advantage of any benefits the Pawnee tribe offers.
His wife's Pawnee, right? His wife's Pawnee.
His wife is full-blood Pawnee.
Yeah, well, my mama was a white woman, so I don't see any problem with that as long as he don't go holding himself out as being an official tribal representative.
Yeah,
There are occasions that tribes do have folks in their organizations that represent them, like Bill Rice was associated with the Katuas for such a long time and was such an advocate for Native sovereignty within the state. So we do have allies, that are not of our people, and so I'm not in any way suggesting that we should disassociate from those people, the ones that have taken advantage of us, the ones that are speaking with our voice that do not represent us.
Yeah.
These are the ones that need to be stamped out. These are the ones that are stealing our ceremonies and taking them elsewhere for public display, especially our stomp ground ceremonies. Mm-hmm. That really rubs me wrong.
I hear you.
Now, there are other situations that reach into the political levels of our nation and government. Was it Massachusetts Senator, was it Elizabeth Warren? Was claiming a 30-second Cherokee or something like that, and all of a sudden she's saying that she's part of us. And of course, there was a huge outcry about that, and even Donald Trump has taken a few cheap shots at her now. But are we aware of any other situations where this has happened? I think there was one at Dartmouth where they had an Indian Studies department, and a woman there claimed she was from a local Delaware tribe, was it? And it turned out, yeah, her tribe turned out to be a nonprofit association, and so she was booted out. Are we seeing much of this, and is there a cost that we have to pay because of it?
There is a cost when you see and for the Cherokees. I won't speak for the Cherokees. I can only speak about Shawnee stuff and alert people to the problems that are common to all of us. So as for Elizabeth Warren, whether or not she's Cherokee folks will have to answer that question.
Yeah.
Whenever we see, like, I am Delaware, I could enroll with the Delaware tribe. So the interest I have in Susan Taffy Reed being a native liaison between students and the campus, that's a big problem. And she becomes the voice of, the Indian people at Dartmouth. And as these people, these fakes have they've been around since the 70s. They fell in love with us in the 70s. It became okay to be Indian, and now all of a sudden they all want to be Indian. They started to have kids. Now the kids have grown up believing these myths of their parents. And now they've entered in academia, or they've entered into politics. And now they're starting to have their own ideas and notion about what Indians need without ever even knowing us.
I took time to look at a list on the website of the federal recognition department program at the Interior Department, and it had hundreds of these listings, and what I thought to be some pretty ridiculous names for tribes. And my ex-wife was a lawyer who was involved with a little bit of this kind of thing, and my current wife now has said she's seen it when she worked in the enrollment department for the Bureau of Indian Affairs, people coming forward with these ridiculous made-up names and these little toy ID cards saying they were proclaiming them a member of the Abenaki Nation, and it was signed by Chief Spiritwater, and ridiculous things like that. And she and her crew got a good laugh out of it when they left, but said, sorry, you're not on the federal recognition list. Is the problem growing from where you sit, or have the outcries from Native people begun to have some effect? Where are we there?
One would think that with the access to information now, with the internet, that we would be able to overcome the voices of the phonies. But there are so many of these out there that we run around stamping out one fire in one place only to see two more pop up elsewhere. These groups have arguments amongst themselves, oftentimes over the money or the politics, or who's controlling their little group, and they'll split and fragment to 2-3 other groups. So they're growing, and they're getting worse, and with the ability to disseminate their information, they have a competitive advantage. They don't have to worry about governing their nation. They don't have to worry about finding funding for their elders, or providing eyeglasses, or making sure that their kids are learning their language. They don't have to do that. All they want to do is this glorification of their own selves and promote themselves as Indian to bring in more money for themselves.
Speaking of money, I've during my career as a reporter had to deal with a couple of those instant shaman types, ones who claimed they're from one tribe but didn't speak the language and were practicing traditions from a different tribe, and had gone off on these personal vision quests where they said, the Creator spoke with them, and I'm thinking, give me a break, people. What do we do about that kind of thing? Is there actually anything we can do? Can we expose them, or anything that crosses the line into criminal activity?
What we can do is If 501c3s are prohibited on their political activities, they cannot spend a substantial portion of their time advocating for or lobbying for laws. So if you see that, you can report them. Indian arts and crafts violation, we can report those when they're 501c3s. Eagle feather laws, although that's becoming a bit of a challenge due to Lapan Apache winning their court case, and now we have heard from Fish and Game officials that they're having some bureaucratic issues internally with their inability to stop eagle feathers from getting in the hands of fakes after the Lapan Apache decision, where they won the right as a Texas state-recognized tribe, even though the Apaches do not recognize them, to have eagle feathers. So we can do those things. We can also, as these bills pop up and these folks start trying to get state recognition, we have to travel into those states. I currently have one on the docket today in Illinois, House Bill 3217. It's going to recognize a group of a guy that's holding himself up to be Shawnee. He wants to have his own little club and tribe, so he's going to try to get himself recognized as Shawnee Tribe of Illinois. So, we have to stop these things as they come up. And it's like these fires crop up, and we have to stamp them out. The only solution that I see on the horizon is an intertribal task force where multiple tribes come together to fight these issues and to get an NCAI resolution to legislate at a federal level the recognition process by which, states must abide by the federal process. They cannot enter into the arena of intercourse with tribal nations as they see it. So those types of things, taking this issue to as a national platform, at a NCAI level platform, becoming more involved at the leadership level and getting more nations together in an intertribal way, that will help stem the tide of these groups.
Now, in our talks earlier, we had you had mentioned that you had this this issue right there, that dealing with it right now, practically as we speak. Now, is your tribe then kind of a target for a lot of this right now?
We have a lot, and it's because of the vacuum and the places we occupied by living in more than 20 states. Also, when you have a famous person amongst your tribe, like Tecumseh, everybody wants to be kinfolk to Tecumseh back there. Or, in West Virginia, it's Cornstalk. And so we see a lot of this crap pop up where people have lived there, so they have settler history there, their families colonized that area. And I think in no small measure to this, part of this is their consciences refusing to believe what their ancestors did to the folks that lived there during Indian removal. And so they see themselves, want to attach themselves some way to absolve themselves of their settler colonial guilt. That's what I think.
One of the requirements by the federal acknowledgement process is that a tribe have a history of culture and tradition in a particular area. How would you define that, and how do you see that a group meeting a requirement? We've got tribes now who've been around for hundreds of years. We have this sort of thing, but what would you think you would need to see for a group to become legitimate?
There are already 7 standards for legitimacy. Now, there are some folks that have been unfairly treated by the federal government during termination era. We see that out on the West Coast particularly. When tribes on the West Coast try to get recognized federally, they cannot because those politicians out there are afraid a casino will pop up in their backyard. Even though most tribal nations do not have casinos. I think it's less than 150 tribes have casinos. But the fear is always that some tribes are going to build a casino, particularly those folks that are real tribal nations that have been terminated out in California. Then there's other tribal nations on the East Coast, like the Pamunkey or the Shinnecock, that because of racist laws of the past from the 19th century, one drop of black blood meant that you was a black person and no longer Indian. So those people were dissolved as nations. Now, they have treaties with the United States, and they are able to fight those battles, but those 7 criteria are tough to meet, and they should be. Just because somebody's of native descent does not mean that they can form a nation. There has to be standing treaty and a continuous government of that nation.
It would seem like if you're a member of a tribe, then that tribe's already there, has been in existence for hundreds of years, and it's just for me, it's just not possible to invent a new one.
You would think. One would think.
After the presentation you made here in Tulsa, I noticed you had quite a questions afterwards, and people kind of pulling you aside to chat with you personally. And of course, the room was full of lawyers and judges and other legal types. And after you, in making the presentation that you did, what is it that you want them to take home with them? What is it that you want perhaps to develop out of that?
What I would really like to do, and it seems to be the case, your Assistant Chief, Lewis Hicks, seems to be really interested in this issue. And, of course, I know the Yuchi citizens of the Mvskoke Creek Nation are also interested in this because they've had their language stolen by fake groups in the southeast. And so what we would like to see is an intertribal task force where we can come together and deal with these issues, come together at the NCAI level to get some federal legislation to make people aware and show the other folks like the Seminoles and the Chickasaws and the Choctaws that this is not a Cherokee problem. This is not a Shawnee problem. This is a tribal nation problem. And these folks are undermining our sovereignty. When they speak on our behalf, and they are creating a false perception of what a tribal nation is. They're damaging our sovereignty they misrepresent us to politicians who are making the rules and are setting the playground by which tribes have to operate in.
In the last couple of minutes here, let me toss a big one at you here. We have a group here at the Mvskoke Creek Nation and the Cherokees, a group called the Freedmen, with African American ancestry blended with their Native American heritage, and they have petitioned for admission into the tribe and to be recognized as citizens of the Cherokee. And the group here with the Mvskoke Creek are actually hoping to become their own tribe. How do you see that situation? Good, bad? Do they need to prove something? And the thing is, I see them good folks, but they may not have that tribal history. Real quick.
I'm only acquainted with the Cherokee issue, and again, I can't speak for Cherokee Nation, but it was explained to me that there's a treaty that permitted those freedmen into the Cherokee Nation. Mm-hmm. So that treaty is what allows those freedmen access to the nation.
Right.
And so I don't understand the Cherokee issue well enough on its freedmen, so I hate to comment on it at all because I know it is a complex issue, and I know that there's some folks that have some legitimate treaty rights within the nation.
Right. And real quick on the creeks, anything there?
Yeah, there's a tremendous. I have not yet got to document all the numbers of the tribes of the Mvskoke Creek Nation, but there's quite a great number of fake Mvskoke Creeks in the southeast, claiming to be creeks.
Right. I've talked with a few of these folks, and there's legitimate geographical connections and some history there. But anyway, listen, I appreciate you taking some time. Perhaps we'll get a chance to revisit the subject, Mr. Barnes. We appreciate you, and good luck with the battles you're fighting there. And I want to thank you for your time here this morning.
Thank you, Gary. Thanks for having me.
Okay. Couple of real quick messages, mostly dealing with our upcoming festival. They are looking for volunteers to help them out with the entertainment section and for the festival parade. If you want to get a piece of that action, give them a ring at 732-7763. Mvskoke Creek Nation Children and Family Services is looking for donations to create care bags for children from ages 0 to 18. They'll be appearing in various points around the Mvskoke Creek Nation. Get a hold of Holly Dunce at the number 918-732-7912 if you can help donate an item for a young person there. Mvskoke Creek Nation, Mvskoke Media Festival order deadline is the 17th of June if you want something from the graphic design people. Banners, posters, magnetic signs, brochures. They get real busy there at the end of the line, end of their time. So if you want something ordered and produced for the festival, June 17th. Mvskoke Creek Nation Community Clinic is open with several services for family medical care. Give them a call. Let's see, where are we? 756-5473. That's all the time, all the material I have time for here today. Appreciate you on listening in. Mado Mabo Hedgescut, Gary Fife, Jeho Jifgados.